Hello everybody and welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for week 3 of the Radical E-Cup here in season 2 of 2025. After a fantastic finish to the race at Road America, it's set up very nicely indeed for race 3, which is here at a very different circuit indeed. The long straights of Road America have been replaced with some long corners through the rises and falls here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as a second North American round in a row in this double header gets underway. Myself, Ian O'Leary and Ron Mans will be taking you through the action once again, and looking forward to this one once again, Ron, as always with these Radicals racing. It's going to be exciting, but it's such a different challenge to 1 week ago.
Oh, it is a complete night and day difference from Road America to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It may not be as far of a trek compared to the Nürburgring and Road America difference that preceded it, but it is still night and day compared to the two racetracks we're going to be running at. CTMP, though, it could put on some pretty good racing in these Radical SR10s. I've seen it before, and I have a feeling based off the two barn burners we've had thus far in this season 2, I have a feeling we're going to keep that streak going into race number 3.
Absolutely, we'll already be at the 1/4 distance at the end of tonight's race. Would you believe it? After 3 rounds of our schedule, we're with you all the way to early June as the Radical E-Cup for season 2 of 2025 continues along. Let's have a look at the championship standings. Difficult to keep an eye on these as the races go along, but we can show you them at the start definitely. Andreas Frederick currently leading the way ahead of Heinz Bruin, with Rafa Blanco in 3rd, Christopher Yanakis and George Gonzaga round at the top 5, and they're all separated by only 28 points. Havok Gullikson is next, only 6 points ahead of Sully Raitanen. Then it's Bruno Vitorino, Johnny Cajolas and Ricardo Galarreta rounding out the top 10 in the standings. It feels like every week we're almost seeing 10 new names at the front end, with some repeats, of course, but many of them are on the grid here today, including Havok Gullikson and Heinz Bruin, who are on the front row together here for this one, with Kjell Larsen in 3rd place, ahead of Rafa Blanco in 4th. Luke Crowley and Ian Bertolucci are sharing row 6. or row 3 rather. They're 5th and 6th in the field. Lasse Sorensen is 7th ahead of Andre Castro, who was very late on denied the victory at Road America 1 week ago. George Gonzaga and Mika Henrik Hulkonen round out the top 10 with James McIntosh and Dennis Kirakopoulos in 12th. Then it's Miran Iani, Kim Andre Bjortland and Gordon Hogg rounding out the 15 drivers in the field. A slightly smaller field than what we've had in the past. Let's see what the racing is going to deliver for us, though. It is pretty misty and foggy conditions here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Headlights certainly required for these guys, and luckily they can just about see where they're going, but not ideal conditions at all as the lights come on and we get ready to go racing here for week 3 of the Radical E Cup in 2025 season 2. We are now underway, and it's a pretty level, even start on the front row between Gullikson and Brun in towards turn number 1. The front 3 already getting into single file through the opening corner of the race in towards turn 2. They'll do same again. It's side by side for 4th place, a little bit further behind, but that will get sorted out fairly quickly as well here. Run down the hill, all looks clean, and it's all pretty stable. The leaders, at least Gullikson anyway, holding on to that front position ahead of Heinz Brun in 2nd place.
And as these drivers continue to contest the first lap of this very foggy CTMP, they're going to be walking on eggshells throughout this first lap, but that's a big one heading down the hill.
Bertolucci has gone for a big slide there down the hill at turn 4. You don't often see that actually through that corner. There must have been contact involved, and he's dropped to the very back end of the field. Meanwhile, Heinz Brun is under real pressure here from Kjell Jarlsson, and this could already give the advantage to Havik Gullikson, who's in the lead here, on the way in towards the final 3 corners. Larsson's on the outside line of Brun, in towards the right-hander. He's not going to get anywhere there. Rafael Blanco is just in behind, watching as well. And then it is Lasse Sorensen next in line. If these guys fight too hard for second, Havik Gullikson is going to be laughing all the way to the race victory here this afternoon, because that's already a 6/10 of a second advantage he's got there.
I will say, though, in these draft-heavy Radical SR10s, that sort of gap can disappear in the blink of an eye, and it could disappear even more if you have a mistake around this racetrack. We've talked about this a lot throughout this season, and I will continue to hit that dead horse with the stick, as we just saw a driver go off the track heading through turn number 2, thinking that may have just proved my point. Very early on into this race with these SR10s, with the standing starts and cold tires, which is always so sketchy in these SR10s, you have to rely on that aerodynamic grip quite heavily in the early stages of this race. But around a track like this with asphalt about as patchy as my face when I was 14, you can't really rely on it too much. That front splitter can get disturbed a lot around here.
We'll get some replays of the incidents and accidents from the first 2 laps of this race as well, because you're right, we did see someone go off in the background there through turn 2 for a fairly top position in the field, as there's weaving around again on the way towards the right-hander, but no positions changed. Larsson, instead of being the one on the attack this time round, is on the defensive in 3rd place, and he's able to hold on to that 3rd place as well, as they now all come through the final corner. Havik Gullikson still leads ahead of Heinz Brun, who's a lot closer to him at the end of lap 2. These races get chipped away very quickly, by the way. You look up and see 20 laps and think that's a long way around here. Well, not really. These laps are going to go by very, very quickly indeed at a pretty short circuit. Pretty fast cars, and the action as well is going to make this race fly by for us as spectators. This is absolutely not done for the race lead. They have pegged back Havik Gullikson now, who was leading by nearly a second earlier on.
And just looking through the drivers that we have in this race, it is some of the Radical SR10 community's best. Looking through Harvard Gullikson, Heinz Brun, Kettle Larson, Rafa Blanca, Lasse Sorensen, Andre Castro, George Gonzaga, Dennis Kyriakopoulos, Myron Ianni. Those top 9 are drivers who I've commentated Radical SR10 official races on for the better part of well over a year and a half now. They are very good racers, and we have even more of them all throughout this field, as we'll see a moment for Luke Crowley. He was running in a solid top 10 position. However, this was that off-track excursion that I just saw in the corner of my eye that was heading down the hill into turn number 2. Takes a trip into that outside tire barrier. Turn 2 clean corner around this racetrack. Shows off the date of this scan. In real life now, that is all asphalt. In this scan, though, it's all grass. And even with those reworked grass physics that they added in about a year and a half ago at this point on iRacing, that turned the grass from green ice into something you could actually drive on with somewhat amount of success, that's still going to be a tough ride for Crowley. So that's part of the reason why he's still in the pits, running down in last.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to finish down there, unfortunately, as well, in 15th place. He was just looking in his mirrors a bit too much there in towards turn 2, I think. I think it was Andre Castro who was moving around in the mirrors trying to get into his head a little bit there, but anyway, I could be wrong on that. He was just slightly put off in towards turn 2, and there is the result. As you say, the new version of Mosport may have saved him there, but I think we've got the better version of Mosport, to be honest, here in iRacing, even if it is slightly outdated. I don't really like the asphalt on the outside line because it's not very punishing, unlike what we just saw there. Shame for Crowley, of course, but you can't get away with mistakes, and that's how it should be around a challenging circuit like this one. As Haber Gulliksen comes up towards the end of lap 4 already, with Heinz Braun right in behind Cadelia Larsen and Rafa Blanco as well inside this top 4, side by side between Bertolucci and Gordon Haag. Meanwhile, in the 13th place, that's right at the back end of the field, behind James McIntosh out of the final corner, and it is going to be Bertolucci who gets the place. He's regaining those places after spinning on lap 1.
And these drivers still continuing to hack at it at this race. We're already a quarter of the way through this 20-lap long race, and not a whole lot of time for these drivers in this official series to try and get the move done. But look at that, Gordon Haug, as we were riding on board with him. Beautiful shot, Ramiro, from the production truck, heading his way through turn number 2 with that inside. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this, Ewan, but there's a little bit of messed up grass on the inside of turn number 2, where if you hit that, you're going to pop your car up into low Earth orbit. So getting very, very dangerous to that small little lip of grass there on the inside. Shows you that these SR10 drivers, they have balls of steel, and they're going to push that car to the absolute limit. Lap in and lap in, race in and race out.
Gonzaga coming through meanwhile on Lasse Sorensen down the back straight here and towards the final few corners. Right round the outside here, it's going to be brave, and Sorensen's going to try and make sure it doesn't happen, but he hasn't got much choice. Gonzaga has managed it, and he's up to 6th position now, with next in line Dennis Kirakopoulos as well in the 8th place. So it's all going on back here, but that was a pretty impressive overtake there from George Gonzaga, who went round the outside of the 3rd last corner there, turn 8, and that is 6th place. Lasse Sorensen struggling really, not only to stay with the leaders, the top 5, but actually struggling now to even keep his position. He's down to 7th.
That's not an ideal moment for those racers, but hey, we still got a decent chunk of this race left to go. As much as I just said a matter of a few moments ago that you don't have a whole lot of time to work with, you also do have a lot of time to work with. It's that weird counterintuitive driver's mind thing where it's like, oh my god, I got 20 laps, I can do this whenever I want to. Then you realize, oh crap, I only have 20 laps to try and get the job done around a racetrack like this. It's that small little back and forth, the game of mental seesaw, as I like to call it. Not the best grammar in the world, but I think the point still remains. Lots of stuff going through these drivers' minds, and they're still going to fight like hell to try and get the job done. That's Lasse Sorensen and George Gonzaga side by side at the bottom of your screen, heading down into the S's of 8 and 9. Gonzaga, a veteran of the series, so is Lasse Sorensen, and they single file out, heading their way off into turn number 9 with Lasse Sorensen in that number 8 car, getting that move done on the 9 to slip his way up into 6th.
Yeah, nicely done. So is that going to be sort of an exchanging battle now between the two of them? Is it going to be one of those battles where every time they come down the back straight, the lead changes, well, not the lead, but the lead of the group rather changes. The overall lead isn't changing so far. Coming up to a 3rd distance here, and Heinz Braun has not been able to yet overtake Haber Gulliksen. However, he is still very close in behind, and that's the important thing at this stage. That was a mistake from Larsen, meanwhile. You may have just seen it in the background there, and he's going to lose out to Rafa Blanco, who now moves up to 3rd.
And that's got to be a good move from Blanco in the number 10 car. He was a driver that, unless my memory is failing me, which it very well may, I've spent a lot of time around some car exhausts over the years, so my brain may be a little bit fuzzled up. But Rafa Blanco, I believe, was a driver who took the first ever Radical SR10 official series win, first win in the first ever Radical official series that I broadcasted with. So he's a quick driver and a veteran of the series as well, but so is Kendall Larson and so is Andre Castro. They were nearly 3 wide, hang their way off into turn number 8. That could have ended in tears. Andre Castro is a very aggressive racer, and you could tell that based off the fact he licked the stamp and sent it to get the move done on Larson, heading off to the final few corners.
And Larson flashes the lights as well. Don't think he's best pleased, but he started the lap in 3rd place. He's ended it in 5th. Why would he be pleased at this stage in this race? He's behind Blanco and Castro now, and for him to get back through again to that podium place is going to be a very difficult and a very tall order for him indeed, although he does have time on his side. It was this corner where things started to unravel. Just went a little bit too wide, and well, he's managed to keep it on the road this time round, so he's getting better around there, but The mistake is made, the damage is done. Blanco and Castro are now in front. Now what are they going to do on the back straight this time round? Well, they're going to get second. That was unexpected, but Heinz Braun goes for a spin at Moss Corner. It's the classic error. And rejoining, he's straight into the side of Sorensen, who now clips in front of the rest of the field as well. Dennis Kyrikopoulos didn't have anywhere to go, and they're both in the wall.
That was ill-advised from Heinz Braun at best and a little bit dumb at its worst. That was not a good move from Heinz Braun in the number 3 car. Had a spin heading through Moss Corner. Tried to get rejoined as quickly as he possibly could, but around a section like that, it is so easy to have a moment like that coming out of that corner. The exit of Moss heading onto that Mario Andretti straightaway, it feels like an alleyway heading through a section like that. I'd like to take a look at a replay to see exactly how all that went down from the perspective of both Braun, to see how exactly he spun, and also the rather clumsy rejoin, if I do say so myself. That was just messy all around.
It was pretty messy. Really? It all started really from that rejoin. So this is the mistake. There's nothing wrong with this because everyone's done this in towards Moss Corner. Slightly too wide, and Heinz Braun spins around. But as disappointing as that is, can't rejoin right in front of the others on the apex there, or the exit rather, the racing line. Sorensen gets clipped. He comes back across the road. How he doesn't force Gonzaga into a spin as he comes across the road, I'm not sure. But Kyrikopoulos didn't have anywhere to go. Sorensen completely out of control here, by the way, and Kyrikopoulos goes straight into him. A real shame in the end for those two. They're both down on pit lane now, as you would expect. But yeah, maybe you could argue Sorensen should have seen what was happening in front of him and adjusted his line, but he had no reason to expect that Heinz Braun was going to be on the exit curb there, going to be right in the way. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you rejoin without thinking about it properly.
It was just an unfortunate incident for all of those drivers, regardless of how it shakes out. But in the end, the net outcome is this. Harvard Gullickson still leading. Andre Castro now finds himself in second. Rafa Blanco rounding out your podium at the moment in the number 10 car in third. So that's a pretty good battle that we may have flaring up for the final podium spot between Blanco and Kjetil Larsen. So gonna have some good battles between now and the checkered flag. Now officially halfway through this Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted race, which you can catch every single weekend on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing YouTube channel. This series has impressed thus far, and despite the fact we're not seeing the heads-up, bare-knuckle fist fights that we have seen in the past for the race win and the race lead, still a pretty good battle that we have going on all throughout the field.
It is. The question now, though, in my mind, is whether Harvard Gullickson is going to be caught here. Now, Andre Castro is in second place, and we'll flesh this out just for a moment, because he come close to winning here last week. He'll be very hungry to get it again as we'll watch the battle for 10th, or 9th rather, on the bottom of your screen. Hogg trying to get past Bertolucci, and he's not going to be successful there, or is he? Maybe on the inside of the second to last corner. Well, yes, he is. He's going to stay alongside here, and the two are going to continue absolutely side by side, but Bertolucci will eventually prevail. This is the biggest, or the earliest in the race rather, that a gap like this has been created this season in the Radical E-Cup races that we've broadcasted anyway here on RaceSpotTV. It's already out at nearly 2 seconds, with only half the race gone, and I wonder whether even with Castro in that second place, whether this is the race win now sorted almost for Harvard Gullickson.
See, I'm going to refrain from making any comments like that myself, because I know my track record as a commentator, and I know the affinity for falling anvils coming down on drivers that I say that they're going to win the race. I'm going to refrain from making any further comments about Harvard Gullickson, but I want to raise that gap isn't really growing between Gullickson and Andre Castro, and really speaks volumes about the competitor that Andre Castro is. He's an aggressive driver, don't get me wrong. He's going to go for the moves where other drivers won't even dare, but he's quick. He is a very quick driver, an accomplished racer in his own regard as well, both in the sim and in real life. I remember making this discovery towards the end of last season, the fact that Andre Castro used to run in some NASCAR Euro events. So he's a quick driver out of New York, so we're going to be keeping tabs on him a lot throughout this official season. He is fast. I wonder exactly how he would do if he found himself battling for the official series championship, or maybe if he made the appearance on the Radical America series, which, by the way, you can catch occasionally on Sundays here on RaceSpotTV. But with that shill about as slick as 80 grit sandpaper notwithstanding, Castro is a very quick competitor.
It certainly is. And we will continue to follow these three as we all the rest of the field, because there are plenty of other battles going on. Marini just ahead of Heinz Braun here. We'll surely be looking for moves back through the field. No damage on Heinz Braun's car, I don't think, even after the spin at Moss Corner. Only damage emotionally, I suppose, after the incident. So he's looking for a way through here. Kim-Andre Bjorklund is just in behind as well, as meanwhile it's side by side for third. Larson getting ahead of Blanco, and that was almost orchestrated between the two.
Maybe a small little swapperoo going on here. I feel like there's going to be a whole lot of team orders comments. Fernando is faster than you, Multi21. Everything's going to appear in the YouTube chat. There was a small little swapperoo between the two of those racers. But regardless, I won't raise now that we're about 7 laps away from the checkered flag. Despite the fact we saw that moment for Luke Crowley and that 4-car collision coming out of Moss Corner involving the likes of Lasse Sorensen, Dennis Kyriakopoulos, and you're at 1.P2 runner of Heinz Braun. It's been a rather clean race up to this point here. Not a lot of drivers running into difficulties, not a lot of drivers getting struck by falling anvils. It has been a clean and a smooth race up to this point. So well done to these racers for keeping it clean.
Well, as you say that, Braun goes a little bit wide through.
There's a commentator jinx.
Maybe loses a place as well. Well, that was always going to happen. Kim-Andre Bjorklund goes through. Heinz Braun just a little bit wide, at least not having a spin this time round, I suppose, which is the very thin silver lining for Heinz Braun there. But he loses a place to Kim-Andre Bjorklund. Nevertheless, that is 7th place now for Bjorklund in the number 6. Marini is just up the road, next in line in that 6th position. So it is all still very close. Just in behind, Bertolucci and Hogg are still pretty close together. And no, nothing doing there that time around. Bertolucci up to 9th now, which is a good recovery, I think. You need to look at where he was at the end of lap number 1, and that, of course, was last. He's made up 6 places since then in the 13 laps afterwards.
And some good recovery drives from these drivers up and down the grid. One driver we haven't talked about, which is someone who I don't think I've ever seen in one of these Radical SR10 races, is James McIntosh in the number 14 car. Finds himself in P11 at the moment. And a reminder, folks, this is not a league race. This is the top split action from the Radical Esports Cup, the Friday 2100 GMT. Works out to about 5 o'clock Eastern. You can do the conversions for anyone else that's in the US, but I'll do them anyways. That's 4 Central, 3 Mountain, and 2 Pacific. But it's a fantastic series to be a part of. You always see the heavy hitters come out in these races, and we got a lot of them peppered all throughout this race. Some drivers that you see competing for championships either in this official series or in the European and America's leagues, and it's just an absolute, it's a consistent cast of characters, which you always love to see in terms of an iRacing series.
Yeah, it is. We'll be here as a constant on the Fridays. It'd be good to continue these broadcasts along these familiar faces that we're starting to know now on Friday nights, as Bertolucci and Hogg again go side by side, and that's contact. That's Gordon Hogg who goes around, and this time Bertolucci is the one who comes out best from a bit of side-to-side contact. Now, he took a very narrow line into the final corner there, and so James McIntosh gets a lot closer. Meanwhile, that is big pressure for Marini now, as Kim-Andre Bjorklund looks to take the 2nd place in the last couple of laps down the inside, and that is Bjorklund up to 6th now.
I gotta take advantage of that quick low mistake of side-to-side contact between Myron Ianni and Heinz Braun. Braun in the 3 car trying to play the Braun roll. That was coming out of turn number 3, breaking the elbows out. I gotta say, Heinz Braun, very fast driver in this series, but much to the degree of Andre Castro, he's a pretty aggressive racer. So that's a spin for Ianni. That's heading down into Moss Corner, so things going from bad to worse for him as more cars getting hit in that.
And it's still going. Marini again hit there by Gordon Hogg, who smashed into Hulkinen as he was spun. Now Ianni's definitely got damaged. We'll need to... oh, yeah, look at that for Hulkinen there, by the way, on the right-hand side. No front end to that Radical anymore. No any form of wheel alignment either going on there. By the looks of things, all sorts of things rattling around in there now, as that front bumper might well just catch loose here in the next couple of moments. Surely these two are going to be coming into pit lane from 11th and 12th position. Or are they going to carry on with only a quarter of the race remaining? Well, they are going to bravely soldier on here. After all, there's no positions further that they can actually drop down from this position that they currently find themselves in. If they stay out on the circuit, they'll, I guess, stay ahead of Sorensen and Kyriakopoulos, because they're both back out on the circuit again, but they're 2 laps down. That was a comedy of errors, unfortunately, down at Moss Corner for loads of different drivers. Let's see how it all happened. Oh no, that's another bad rejoin. So Marinini actually goes for a spin in the first place, then tries to rejoin and is smacked by Hulkonen, who didn't have anywhere to go. Meanwhile, Kim-Andre Bjorklund's gone for a spin out of the very same corner. Well, that is a bad moment for Kim-Andre Bjorklund. He was making progress, very good progress at that as well, but he is now dropping down to the back end of the field as a result of all of that. This is Harvard Gullikson, and the gap now for the lead is less than a second. I knew it wasn't going to be quite so simple. Gullikson got over to a second's lead, and now Castro has reeled him in 7/10 of a second. 3 laps to go at the end of this one. Has he got time to make this overtake work?
And I wonder if we're going to see this battle for the win turn into a 3-car battle instead of just 2, because Kettle Larson right behind, he's within striking distance as well. But one thing to raise is that the fact that Kettle Larson and Harvard Gullikson, both teammates for IGL Coatings, so they're maybe going to be a bit less keen on throwing haymakers at each other. Andre Castro, though, he's going in it for the win. He's got to be going for all that glory as we take a look at a replay to see Gordon Haug's perspective and all of that. He just clipped that car ever so slightly, and there you can see more contact being made with himself and Myron Ianni. One thing to raise again about the series, since it is an official, you don't want to rack up too many incident points, otherwise you're going to find yourself getting struck by one of those dastardly iRacing DQs. But never mind that incident coming out of turn number 5. We got battle heating up for the race lead. Gullikson and Castro covered by about a 10th, heading down into turn 2.
Can Castro avenge that loss from last week? He was passed on the last lap at Road America to be denied victory. This time round, he's come through the field to have a chance at a late win here in the number 1 car. He's brought Larson with him, so he can pick up the pieces if anything goes wrong here. But Castro is applying some big pressure right now to Harvard Gullikson for the race lead. In towards Moss Corner, they now go. That's a bit of a tighter line from Gullikson into the second part. Castro's going to have a good run, and this could be a change for the lead now with just 2 laps to go at the end of this lap. Down the straight, in towards less than a 10th and a half. Less than a 10th now. Castro pulls to the outside. He's got so much more speed on the outside line here. He might even be clear by the corner. Gullikson is not even alongside anymore. Andre Castro takes over the lead.
And that was a slick move from Castro to slip his way up into P1, but now he goes from the offense to the defense, and this is going to be a tough challenge because he's got Harvard Gullikson, who's going to be itching, chomping at the bit to try and re-grab the race lead, and Gullikson's also going to have backup in the form of his teammate Kettle Larson, rapidly encroaching upon these drivers now about 7/10 of a second between Gullikson and his teammate of Kettle Larson. That's going to be some backup if ever you find it, and when that happens, Andre Castro is going to have a real tough task on his hands to try and hold off not 1, but 2 IGL Coatings esports drivers.
Yeah, that is going to be difficult, but right now he does look like he's just got the speed, and that might be enough to keep them at bay. He was certainly a lot closer to Gullikson than Gullikson is to him as they get into Moss Corner now for the penultimate time. The white flag will be waved next time round. To get what I mean about the races going by very quickly indeed, it's happening again here as Castro is in the lead. Gullikson just in behind him, weaving around to try and grab the slipstream because he absolutely needs it right now. He needs to be a lot closer than that as well. 6/10 of a second was the gap out of Moss Corner. It's barely down to 4 by the end of the straight. I would say that he needs to be about maybe 4 cents behind Castro, maybe less, if he wants to make that move by the end of the straight on the very last lap of the race. That's when it's going to have to be.
Let's see how it's going to shake out in the final lap of this race. A white flag in the air, 1 more lap of racing action, and Andre Castro finds himself taking that white with a half a second gap to himself and Harvard Gullikson. This is going to be a tough challenge, though, for Castro. One section that he has to worry about more than anything is heading out of Moss Corner. If he gets a bad exit coming out there onto that Mario Andretti straightaway, he's not even going to be a sitting duck. He's going to be an anvil pushed out of a helicopter. He's going to drop down so badly. But he now finds himself with a 6/10 of a second gap between himself and Gullikson, dropping back a little bit through the first sector. But here we go. This is a money corner.
It is. How's your run out of here? And for Castro, it's excellent. An excellent run out of the corner, and surely that sealed the race win for him now. 7/10 of a second his margin. He weaves around again from the left to the right. Gullickson chases the slipstream all the way across the road, of course, but he's going to get nowhere near here. This is going to be Andre Castro's best race and drive of the season for sure. 7 places gained and a race win to go with it as well. One which he was so cruelly denied just 1 week ago as a result of the last lap pass. It's going to be a last lap hold on here for Andre Castro. He crosses the line, checker flag waves at Mosport, and Andre Castro wins here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park ahead of Ava Gullickson by 5/10 of a second. The money corner, as you described it, Moss corner, was where it was won for Andre Castro. His run was electric.
It was a fantastic drive from Andre Castro in that #1 car. The New Yorker got to find himself grabbing another win during this season. Not the first time we've seen Andre Castro back that #1 machine into victory lane, and I have a feeling based off the pace that he shows week in and week out, it's not going to be the last either. But well done to Castro. He got a brilliant exit coming out of Moss quarter. Gullickson overshot it a little bit. I don't even think he hit the apex with a 10-foot pole. That was not what Gullickson needed at the end of that race, but Andre Castro still the standout star here in the 3rd race of this season.
Absolutely. He is the fastest man in this field, and 7 places gained gets him the win here tonight ahead of Havok Gullickson. Xavier Larson only 1.3 seconds behind. Rafa Blanco only 3 seconds behind. A very close top 4 again. George Gonzaga had a bit of a gap back to him. He finished just ahead of Heinz Braun, who was involved in some of the more controversial incidents of the race. Ian Bertolucci gained 8 places after spinning on lap 1, so I think he'll consider this a good day, at least morally, if not his I rating and safety rating might not say that. James McIntosh ghosted his way up to 8th, overtaking loads of drivers who had issues, including Kim-Andre Bjorklund, who finished his 9th. Gordon Haag survived that hit through Moss corner to finish in the top 10 with the likes of Maranini and Mika Henrik Hulkkonen, who finished down at the back end of the field. Lassie Sorensen and Dennis Kyrkopulos were 2 laps down. They did re-emerge from their incidents. Luke Crowley did not, unfortunately. He finished 17 laps down at the very end. Well, another very exciting round of the championship here, Ron. I mean, it's going to be difficult to beat last week, to be fair, with Road America's grandstand finish into Canada corner on the last lap. But that was pretty dramatic as well. And a great drive, the best drive so far this season from Andre Castro, maybe from anybody this season as well.
Castro, he had to make up a lot of spots between the start and the finish of this race, so well done to him. And also just that move that he put on Harvard Gullickson, it didn't look like he was breaking a sweat when he went for that move as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff from Andre Castro. I mentioned a couple of moments ago, that's not the first time we've seen him back into victory lane in seasons past. He has been a very good contender in these Radical SR10s all throughout this season. He has certainly shown the pace as well, and here in these 2100 GMT broadcasted races, he's found himself being pretty good as well. I believe he won the opening race of the season at the Nürburgring, so have it be known that that man is quick.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what happens next time out. We'll be visiting Suzuka at 9 p.m. GMT. That's in 7 days' time for the 4th round of the Radical E-Cup here in the 2nd season of 2025. Very much hope that you can join us for that one as well. It is going to be another exciting edition. Of course, if you stay with us here on RaceSpotTV, there's more Radical Sim Racing action coming up here on sporadically throughout the Sunday nights throughout this year. So make sure you come and join us for that as well. It's been a fun season so far. It's going to continue to be as we cover some Radical SR10 racing here in 2025. It's been exciting so far, and this just another instalment of it. Andre Castro's great run through the field from 8th on the grid to win this race. Perhaps the highlight of his or maybe everyone's season so far as he takes victory at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Make sure you join us again in 7 days' time at Suzuka for the next instalment of this championship. I've been Ian O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds and Ramiro Augustin Cisneros, who's been behind the cameras. Big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in tonight. We'll see you next week at Suzuka. Goodbye for now.